Appreciate everybody joining today. We're going to have a great session because we're going to hear from people who are actually doing things out in the field and learn a little bit about what works and maybe what doesn't work in terms of using cover crops and annual forages. So today we have Doug Steffen, who's in Northeast Nebraska. And we have Lance Schutte, wherever Lance went. Oh, there you go. Hi, Lance. And he's out at Clay Center. And so we got a little bit of differences in environments and conditions, and I'm sure systems. So with that, I guess I'll just open it up, Doug, and let you start wherever you would like to. And if you want me to share your pictures, I can do that.
Mary, I'll just do kind of an introduction first and kind of give everybody a background on what the goals I have and what I'm trying to do with my operation. So we have a diversified operation. It's all dry land acres in northeast Nebraska, up along the South Dakota border. Crofton, Nebraska is where we're at, but really the goal of our operation is how can I increase the amount of diversity and intensity through my cropping rotations, and then also managing our pasture to in a sense to improve upon the improve the pasture grazing, improve the grass, and then also be able to increase stocking density through our diversification. So really trying to work on that. So how I've decided to do that is we're looking at utilizing livestock and also breaking up our crop ground into smaller tracts, and which is kind of countercultural a little bit, but um, we're using cover crops, grazing those cover crops, and then coming back with cash crops. So either we'll do an early spring cash crop, then we'll go with and then a grazing cover crop, and then come back in with a cash crop after that. Just a shorter season. I'll call it trying to find different windows of opportunity. What it does is it allows us to beyond increase our rest periods within our pastures, and we're really seeing an improvement of like our worm seasons, the ability to increase our management and our grass, just really improve our grass. So it's a continual work in progress. I would tell you, I've been doing this for a number of years, but I don't have it all done, and I'm still learning. So, and have things that we can improve upon. So, um, Mary, if you want to show the slides, I'll go through those and just kind of give people a little bit of an idea of what we're doing. Okay, this says spring grazing mix. Actually, up on the top, we have these Delta yellow field peas. Um, what I did do on a number of our acres this year is I planted a four-way mix, just trying to improve the diversity. Now I'm actually not going to be utilizing this as grazing. The intent is to take this as a grain crop, and then come back with a warm season. So this is an example of um, utilizing the different windows here. So we planted that. We planted Delta yellow peas, oats, turnips, and flaxseed at about March 20th, is when we seeded these crops, and then down. So like I said, we're going to take that as a grain, and then we're going to interseed like a sorghum Sudan grasses into that, and we'll utilize that as a fall grazing, and when we pull cattle off of pastures, or if we wean calves onto that. So I hope to get some regrowth on the yellow peas. There's going to be some shell out and other stuff there. I know and understand that, but really look to, so we're not grazing those. We're going to take a cash crop, then come back and use it as grazing after that. The one below that, the common vetch, the T Raptor hybrid brassicas, the impact forage collar, and those other brassica forage mixes, I did include that in with some alfalfa, and that's going to be an early spring type grazing. The way it's working out for my grazing right now, that mix is gonna. I was looking at trying to get a multiple grazing off of that, but where I'm at, I probably am just gonna hit it with a one time type type of grazing, is where I would be at with that one. So, Mary, go ahead and go to the next one. So this is the one where I would say like it's really having for me, I think it's really important to get a fencing, get your put a plan together and put a fencing system up. So a lot of my acres are in like 80 around 80-acre tracts. So um, I'm dividing it up into about 40-acre tracts lengthways. So here I'm utilizing a high tensile wire and fiberglass post, and my corner post systems are is really what I'm utilizing here. And what I'll do is I'll jump onto those wires and just pull it across to control my paddock sizes for my livestock. So so you'll see that on the left there. Another thing that you see in that left picture that I'm doing. So to the on the kind of the top right hand corner, you'll see a rye that's growing in a that was an early season corn that we harvested around the end of September at about 17% moisture. Then we went in and drilled a rye crop into that at about October 3rd. And now the purpose in that field is we're really just letting it build. We did graze it early springtime, right? And we then pulled the cattle off of that and moved them to a different area. And then in the bottom part of that corner, you'll see rye that's not quite as tall, quite as thick. So that was seeded around in December 20th time frame. So I'm using different seeding dates to help me manage my grazing, because if you plant all the rye at the same time, it all gets ready at the same time, and once it heads out, nothing wants to graze it. So for me, trying to set up my timing and moving livestock through it, I'm planning a different date so then I can utilize extend my grazing of my rye crops
Doug, when was
later.
this picture taken?
A couple days ago.
Okay.
So the day before I sent it to you, Mary, so is when that was taken. So to the left, you can't really see it, but that's a hairy vetch. That's a hairy vetch crop that we're going to be taking for cover crop seed. So we'll harvest that in July too, and then we'll seed probably some of my oats back into that. And we'll use that as grazing in the fall as well. So I'm really leaning away from my corn and soybean acres just because it takes up such a large window in the summertime that I just don't feel it's a great opportunity for me to utilize the livestock and try and improve the land. So it's just finding different crops that I think will give me different opportunities, and anything that will give me ability to come back and graze it or build some biomass to build cover on the land is really where I see a lot of potential and opportunity there. So um, on the right hand side of this slide, so this is an after grazing picture, and you'll see some of the cattle in the top part of the picture, but where we so they on the right we grazed that for about 24 hours. We had approximately 130 head of cow-calf pairs on 3.7 acres. So it ended up to be I would estimate around 50,000 pounds per acre. I probably feel I grazed that too hard. Now that rye is pretty resilient and tough, and I think will come back and still build me some biomass. But um, I really encourage people to fence off small. The smaller you make it, the more competitive the cattle are going to get, or the livestock are going to be in that area, and they're going to graze more effectively. If they're let out just to be able to pick and choose where they want to go, they really cherry pick and travel quite a bit. And the best I could say is it's like they're like, well, this is my playground. I just want to run wherever. So you really want to cattle are a tool for me that I really want to control to make sure I'm grazing weeds, and grazing certain areas effectively. So for me, I try and set it up to where I move them once a day, just for the time that it works for me and stuff like that. So go ahead, Mary. We can go to the next one. So this is just a polywire that I bought from Baumgars. We put it on a reel. Um, I'll I have I go about every 200 feet for my paddock sizes approximately. I connect to the connect to my fiberglass post and wrap it around the high tensile wire, and I string it to the next one and tighten it up, and then put my post in. Then when I taking the wire down, I on the well to my left on the screen there's a DeWalt drill that I just use to roll it up and go to the next one. So um, I know there's the geared reels. I don't have any right now. I guess I want to get some of those. I think it'd just be a better way to set it up because I have to turn the fencer off because I don't want to get shocked. So anyway, I have to turn it off and set it set it up. And if the cattle are, if maybe I haven't gotten back to there and they're really hungry, getting them to stop at the next polywire, I have had instances where they've gone through. So, um, I mean, this is what we use. It works, but it's not a great. Like I said, yeah, use what you have, and then you can make things work. So, and mentioning the fencer, I make sure I get really hot fencers, just because, if we have any ground, things just happen, and I just make sure it's a really strong, dependable hot fencer. Um, all mine, I'm working to make sure everything's connected to a 110, and then just setting up my farm uh, that way. So the other thing is high tensile. I didn't get that picture in there, but I mean these cattle are running at so to the top right where Mary has the cursor at there. So that's my oats, peas, and oats, peas, flax, and turnips. And there is some volunteer veg growing in there, which I'm really happy about. But it's so that's a plan to be a harvest. They won't cross that fence to get over there. Last year, you can see the corn residue. I grazed this same area last year, and those cattle didn't even touch the corn. So I used just some metal wire on the other side, and I had corn over there, and they pressed through that and broke through and took out some acres of corn for me. So the investment of high tensile fencing and a good fencing system is well worth the dollar spent. So that's my plug for it because I just set it up and go with that. I don't have it done yet. I just last year. This is all in the same section. So right in front here where you see the two, I want to lay a water pipeline down so that I can connect to water system about every 400 feet, and then we'll have a watering system that will just be able to connect to either side when we're grazing. So I'm grazing where we're at now. We're grazing early spring, and then the other side where the corn stalks are at, we'll be grazing that late summer. So that's how we're utilizing that. So go ahead, Mary, go to the next one.
Yeah, I think this one might answer Lance's question because he asked about your water sources and how you utilize those.
Yeah, so here's our water. Here's what my watering source is basically this is a feed bunk that doesn't have a hole in it that was put on a dolly. That we hook up to a tractor or a pickup or a four-wheeler if it's not full, and pull it along. So what we do is we connect honestly, it's just a garden hose. So on this on this property, we just recently buried a water pipeline through the middle of it. I know we have hydrant connections every so um, every so often, and then this is what we pull through as we're watering our livestock on these fields. So the goal here is to find another. Like I said, I want to find I'll get more pipelines set up to go through down my dividing fences, and then that's where we'll connect in and pull this along to move to each paddock is what we utilize there. I guess in this, I'm learning that cattle are very mischievous animals as well. I may, I've had sheep as well, and they all seem to find ways to have you scratch your head, I would think. So I would say so. They on this here, you can kind of see it up on the front is where I'll have the float on it, and then I have a couple pipes we cut, and I have the hose that goes over the top. Well, you need to make that solid because the cattle, they love to rub on it and then break. Then they have when you'd see pictures of kids like open up the fire hydrants in like the cities and water spraying everywhere. Well, that's what happened there. And then wherever we kind of have that, we have a few rods welded in there to keep them out from messing with the float. Well, somehow Kef figured out how to get his head in this triangle, and he ended up he ended up dying on us. So it's there's lessons that you have to learn that are sometimes painful, but you definitely remember them. So um, this is this is what we use for our watering system. We can hold about 700 gallons. We estimate in that tank, and it gives them plenty of space to water. And if they're always pretty content when they're grazing and just going back and forth to the water where they have a good supply too. Another thing, and this isn't any sort of scientific proof. The reason I said 400 feet, um, just behind this, we have a pasture that's divided off into kind of a pie. We have paddocks that are pie shaped. Every year and so the water source is in the center point, and they always graze really heavy. They go get a drink of water, and then right off the pad of the concrete, they're grazing really heavy from there. And I'm like, it happens every year, and then all of a sudden, it seems like there's a line where I just can't get them to go any farther. And anyway, in my opinion, I used an app on my phone to measure it, and it was about 600 feet. So that's why I'm like, about every 400 feet, those animals, divide. If I'm going 200-foot paddocks, I can cover two paddocks with one splice, and then also it gives me about the distance of what event the cow likes to walk, and try and hopefully improve the efficiency of my grazing. So,
Well, thanks, Doug. I think
sure.
we'll have more questions for you, I'm sure, at the end here. I think we'll give Lance a chance now to talk a little bit about what he does. He's the Forage Guru out at US Mark.
Yeah, use that term lightly, Mary.
He definitely tried some different things, and so we've learned some lessons together, and he's taught me a few things. So I thought maybe he'd share what he's been doing.
Well, thank you very much. And Doug, I'm super, super happy to hear that other people have the same problems with cattle that we do. So yeah, cattle running through a polywire after you set it up, that's about as disheartening as it can get. So, no, thank you very much, Doug. I learned a lot, and I may be calling you to take a look at your water delivery system, your water trailer. That was phenomenal. So, as Mary said, I'm the range and forage guy at US Meat Animal Research Center in Clay Center, Nebraska. Every year we expose right at about 72 to 7,700 females to breeding. We generally calve out about 55 to 5,700 animals every spring. So that's kind of our scope. So fairly large operation. We have 24,000 acres of dry land pasture, 2,500 acres of irrigated pasture, and about 700 to 900 acres of what we call annual forages / cover crops, that are available for grazing purposes. Much like Doug, our goals are to try to help mitigate drought. Annual forages are a great way to mitigate drought for us. What we've kind of done in the past is we've gotten really good at double cropping annual forage fields. So utilizing a fall planted overwintering annual such as rye or triticale or wheat. We've used all three of those in the past, and grazing that in the spring. And then following that up with a summer, late spring, early summer, warm season annual. Sorghum Sudan is one of my favorite ones, just because you can graze it off short, and it will regrow. It's very hardy, very resilient, but something, and we generally graze both those crops in that system. Something that we've really gotten into in the past couple of years is utilizing a triple crop system. Soil health is big. It's very important. It's important to us. We want to grow and root under that soil as for as long as we can have it. So we've started utilizing a triple crop system. We're following up soybeans and corn silage that's harvested in late August, early September, following that up with Elbon cereal rye. That's getting taken for silage in the spring, which we're hoping to start now. It's starting to get a little mature on us, but I think we got a little bit of time. I think we're actually going to be laying some down today and harvesting that for silage. We'll follow that up with generally sorghum Sudan. But this year we're going to go with a Foxtail Millet, just because we need some dry hay, and the Foxtail Millet makes very good hay, and it doesn't take 3 weeks to dry down. So we're last year we ended up using a sorghum Sudan, and we chopped that for silage as well. Once again, is solely a drought mitigation strategy. We were feeding cows by July 1 last year, and we just needed something to feed them. So we ended up planting sorghum Sudan last year and chopping that in August 1st for silage. Something that we really learned, after the sorghum Sudan, we go in mid August to early September. Follow that up with a oat, rapeseed, and grazing corn seed mix, and plant that into those same acres. And we let that grow until termination in October, November. And then we graze that with some stalkers coming out of the feedlot, replacement heifers, steers, whatever we need to get out of the feedlot. Some lessons that we learned is we've tried not terminating the cereal rye after harvesting, and we found that that's kind of important. It really inhibits the next crop if you don't terminate it. You can really it inhibits the growth, but it makes up for it. If you take it for hay, take the sorghum Sudan, the warm season annual for hay, it offers good biomass, but the quality is junk. And then the second crop is okay. The sorghum's there, and it'll come back in. So we've really found that out. Something else that we've kind of discovered is After the sorghum, we really need to, or no, I'm sorry, after the rye, we really need to control pigweeds. If we miss terminating the rye, and if we don't use the right chemicals, we'll get a lot of pigweeds and warm season annual weed competition. We've seen that in the past. This last year was kind of bad for us. We ended up having to treat our warm season annual fields with dicamba just to try to knock the pigweeds back. So, like I said, this year we're going to go in with, for our second crop, we're going to go in with a Foxtail Millet instead of a sorghum sedan, because the Foxtail Millet will dry down much quicker. We're gonna bale it up for stored hay. That's what we're gonna need the most. Provided
Have you done Foxtail Millet before?
we have done Foxtail Millet.
What's the yield you usually get off of it?
The Foxtail Millet, off the sorghum sedan for silage, we generally get 9 to 10 tons per acre. Now that's harvested. And we're looking probably 35 to 37% dry matter on that. So on the Foxtail Millet, we can generally get 2 to 2.5 tons per acre of hay. So we're going to sacrifice a little bit we're going to sacrifice a good amount of dry matter. But the timing that it takes to dry down that Foxtail Millet versus the sorghum sedan for hay is,
Important.
yeah, it's very important. So,
Well, and the other thing you mentioned was triple cropping. Notice the difference between your double crop system and your triple crop system. Your triple crop was harvest, graze.
Right. Yeah. So it's harvest, graze, and timing is everything. And so that's why we have to mechanically harvest those first two crops. We have tried it in the past, and I know Mary looked at it. She saw the results. We tried grazing everything. Yeah, it was kind of the field looked like a disaster, but we got a lot of production off of it. So, it just it's so much easier, and so important to have good timing, on your harvest. Otherwise, the crop outruns you, your forage quality declines rapidly. You can't get your cows to eat it. You got a lot of weed encroachment. So timing's everything on this. I figure our growing season is April 15th to October 1. October 15th, I guess, is kind of our typical growing season. If we get delayed a week in August or September, our backs are up against the wall on growing degree days. And so, being able to optimize those growing degree days is just, it's vitally important. So, something that we're going to do this year on our last crop, we're going to start throwing in about 30 to 35 pounds of cereal rye in with our oats, just for soil health, just so that we have growing roots under the soil in the spring, and try to help control some weeds. So, on the grazing versus the mechanical harvest on the sorghum, this last year we had a field that we grazed with cows, and we were able to get 5 AUMs per acre. That's equivalent to about 5,400 pounds of dry matter. I figure about 70 to 75% utilization. So, you can do the math. And then and then we came back that following, that was in July when we grazed that. And then we let it accumulate, and then we windrowed that same field in late September, and then we grazed the windrows in December and January. And we were able to harvest 6.5 AUMs per acre off of that. And so, you know, just a small modification, you know, that single machine running across there really paid off for us, you know.
So talk a little bit about your grazing management, because 5 AUMs an acre for an early summer, like July, that's a lot. Like,
right.
what do you do? High intensity?
Yep. So we, you know, and Doug mentioned it, you know, we go very high intensity. You know, we have the benefit of having very large herds. We can run 400 or 500 head of cows out on a quarter of annual forage, out on a quarter of sorghum sedan if we need to. You know, right now we've got 450 head of heifers out, and we're trying to make them eat some headed out cereal rye, and it's not going very good. So much like Doug, we strip graze it. Our only difference is, you know, we're dealing with entire quarters, irrigated pivots. You know, the way we do it is we just wagon wheel off the center point. It makes for somewhat easy math for our folks setting up fences. The one thing I wish that we had was a portable water source, because all of our water sources are stationary. So everything has the back graze. So we don't have much for opportunity for recovery in some instances. And so that's one thing I'd like to change, but yeah, that's how we graze those pastures. They're those annual forages. We strip it, and that can be anywhere from, you know, 2.5 acres to, you know, 5.5, 6 acres, or 10 or 20. Just depends on the group size and how much feed's out there in front of them. So, you know, our oats in the fall, you know, we don't, that's very good feed. Like I said, we're grazing replacement heifers coming out of the feedlot. You know, they're weaned in October, September, October. They spend 30 days in the feedlot. They make sure they're healthy, and then they kick them out for grazing in November-ish, December-ish, somewhere in there. And then those animals will go out onto the oats and rapeseed and grazing corn, and we'll graze them pretty well much all winter on that feed source. And generally we're able to get 1.5 to 2.5 AUMs per acre. We've gotten upwards of 3, but that was a very exceptional year. You know, on average, it's generally 1.5 to 2.5 AUMs per acre. Animals perform very well. They're healthy. The only thing that really prohibits us from optimizing or maximizing those fields is a heavy snow. And animals aren't able to access it. If it crusts over and animals aren't able to dig through it, that's kind of prohibits those heifers from doing a really good job on it. So, I mean, that's kind of our system. Yeah, you know, I really enjoy talking about this. I could keep on going all day, but I think everybody's got a little bit more important things to do. So, but no, if anybody's interested in, you know, taking a tour or learning more about it, Mary has my contact information. You know, come on down and you know, I'll show you around, and you can see cattle, see grazing, see pastures, and whatever you guys are interested in.
Well, thanks, Lance. I think we'll open it up for questions from anybody. Doug, I see you unmuted, so you have something you want to chime in on, or do you want to ask a question?
You know, that's, I guess, the effectiveness, yes, the effectiveness of your grazing is really key on how. So, you know, so Lance has a lot more cows than I have. You know, we only have around 70. So I'm like, you know, I'm like a much smaller scale, but it's, you know, it's the same concept. You know, it's between, you know, to 1 to 5,000. You know, the rules don't really change in what you want to see. Like, you know, So, for me and myself, I sometimes, well, I have thistle pressure that pops up in some of my fields. I'm like, well, what the heck? What? As I'm working in these fields, I'm like, how the heck do I manage this? Because I'm really trying to reduce chemicals and what I'm, how I'm spending dollars that way. And then also I know each plant has a certain job for the soil health and the soil biology. If I let those animals just graze a big area, they won't touch it. But if I limit them to that area, they can do a lot of impact in that. Or maybe I put a mineral feeder close to that, so I'm getting a lot of hoof impact, and it's utilizing those animals as a tool is one thing that I'd really recommend to help try and set those plants back. The other question I guess I have for Lance is that's so you talked about using a dicamba product, or you talked about your pigweeds or some of those issues there. So what are what are you following? I may have missed that or didn't quite catch it. What are you falling back with? Um, what's the crop going in? That is that just like a sorghum, or that you're needing to knock those pigweeds back?
Yeah, yeah. So on the when we use the dicamba, that was just because we had a very significant encroachment of pigweeds in our sorghum Sudan, and it was really sucking up a lot of moisture. Those pigweeds were, and I'm not sure if pigweeds are allelopathic, but you could tell where the pigweeds were the highest in. So I know James asked about fertilization. So we fertilize every single crop. And so we generally put on about, excuse me, anywhere from 60 to 120 pounds per acre on our rye fields. That's really driven by soil tests in the fall. On our warm season annuals, that is we've run into some problems with nitrates. We've had some pearl millet test as high as 30,000 parts per million, and woof, that was hot. So we try to avoid that. And so the warm season annuals, we generally put on 60 to 80 pounds. We find it might be a little on the light side for the amount of biomass that we're trying to generate, but that way we're trying to ensure that we're not going to run into nitrate issues. And then, of course, being irrigated, we can make it rain out there and try to mitigate for that mechanism to accumulate nitrates. The oats, we generally put on about 45 to 50 pounds for the fall planted oats.
And when you're talking about pounds, you're really just talking about nitrogen.
Yeah, pounds of nitrogen. Yep. Yep. Just pounds of nitrogen. Pounds of N is what I'm talking about. And that's because we use all kinds of different products. In the spring, we spread urea. And then in during the summer, just so we're not tying up a field by trying to go out and go spread urea again, we'll apply 32% through the pivot. We'll fertigate, and then we generally fertigate again in the fall too, just because it's way simple. It's simple for me, I guess, because I just tell people go do it. So, but that's kind of our fertilization practice.
Well, guys, I really appreciate you guys sharing with us today, and I'll just wrap this whole session up by saying there is a lot of different ways to do things, but there's a few consistent concepts I think that came up in terms of what both of you were talking about and about what we discussed throughout the series. Grazing management is kind of a key piece. If you're trying to graze these annual forages, they grow very fast and they mature very fast. And if you're wanting to get more out of them, you've got to make sure that you don't let them get mature on you, because the cattle don't really like to eat the mature stuff. And the more you can do to control grazing, the more you can actually get them to utilize it more evenly, so you don't have spots that get mature on you. The consistency is we got to pay attention to management. Fertility is important. And then I also think that there's a lot of different things you can do, and it really depends on what you're trying to achieve, right? So depending on whether you need, as you mentioned, do I need hay? Do I need grazing this time of year? Do I need grazing that time of year? What am I looking to do? Is it, you know, I want to keep more roots in the ground, and so I'm going to change up my rotation. There's all kinds of fun ways to incorporate annuals. Hopefully, you guys find this useful. And again, you guys got questions or you're thinking about trying something on your own operation and want to bounce it off of somebody, we're happy to help if we can.